You're listening to an IOE podcast.
Powered by UCL Minds.
This is Research for the Real World. Conversations with researchers about the paths they've taken to shape our everyday lives.
Can you believe we're still in this mess?
Which mess?
The pandemic. What other mess is there?
Well, there's climate change, a few government issues, and parties.
To be honest, I'm just happy to be here and carrying the baton.
Which baton?
The Research for the Real World podcast. We're now up to season 13.
You know what else is getting old?
What's getting old?
The IOE. We're marking 120 years of IOE work transforming lives and society throughout 2022. When did you join the IOE, Emily?
I joined in 2017. What about you, Laura?
I joined in 2018. I guess we should introduce ourselves properly. My name is Dr. Laura Outhwaite, and I'm a Senior Research Fellow in IOE's Centre for Education Policy and Equalising Opportunities.
And I'm Emily MacLeod. I'm a PhD researcher also based at IOE, UCL's Faculty of Education and Society.
Dr. Sam Sims and Dr. Kerry Wong spent 2021 delving into some major issues, and now we're going to give it a shot. So it seems that usually when a new presenter comes, we at least have to attempt to do a non-work chat. Do you have any new goals for 2022, Emily?
Yes, to relearn French. I used to be a school French teacher, but since I've left the classroom, I've hardly spoken it at all, and I really want to get back into it. What about you?
Well, I really want to learn more about rock climbing and go on more new adventures outdoors.
Nice.
I think what's great about this new season of Research for the Real World is that we're exploring the ways in which socially relevant research can tackle challenges on a global scale.
Absolutely. This season, I'm interviewing Professor John White about how philosophy of education influences school curriculum and hearing about his life and his work at the IOE. He's been here for over 60 years, so it's been interesting to hear how things have changed in that time.
I mentioned before, which is a life of well-being is one where you're wholly and successfully engaged in relationships or activities that are worthwhile in themselves. This was first put forward by a very great British philosopher called Raz, Joseph Raz. And I think there's a lot in this. So if you live your life based around things like a loving marriage, absorbing work, engaging scientific research, walking through the woods, if that's an enjoyment of yours, surfing, all sorts of paid work that you're doing, then you've had a fulfilling life. Of course, this needs to be argued through, but let me just bring it back to the curriculum and see how it bears on what might happen in schools.
I'm also speaking to Professor Lynn and Dr. Jessica Massonie about their Action Against Stunting research project.
The overall aim of the research is to take a holistic approach to understanding the child, which I think is really important because we need to see children holistically, not from the perspective of just one domain, which is, for instance, only education or only from a biological perspective. We need to see the child as the whole ecology of where children develop and how they grow. So the aim of the research is to take this holistic approach and to investigate the wider biological, social, environmental, and also behavioral contexts in which stunting occurs in order to identify and also better understand how the different factors, those constellation of factors can come together and interact to prevent, improve, or even reverse some of the key features of stunting.
And I'll be chatting to Professors David Gough and James Thomas from the Epicentre about how sound research evidence can inform policy and practice.
As with all research, the research question is crucial, but research questions are driven by different perspectives, your theoretical, ideological assumptions and priorities. And if you have three academics in the room and you ask them opinion or their knowledge of the evidence, that evidence may be different because the way they're framing the issue, their assumptions and priorities are different. So as well as being very explicit and transparent about methods, we need to be very explicit and transparent about the perspectives which are framing the questions and therefore the research.
As well as Dr. Jo Van Herwegen about supporting children with special educational needs.
I think most practitioners and parents don't need to be convinced that any child is an individual and that there's lots of individual differences. But it is really important that we get an understanding of what works for what groups of children, not only groups that have a label, but also within those groups, there might be subgroups, for example. There might be certain children that benefit from one particular approach more than another. And that's really what, in my research, what I'm really looking at is, what works for which children and why would that be the case? But also, I think working with children with developmental disorders and special educational needs, because of their complex developmental pathways, it actually also informs us around theories of developmental psychology in general and about learning in typically developing children as well.
So listen up and get ready for season 13 of Research for the Real World.
Right here on the IOE podcast.
Research for the Real World is produced by IOE Marketing and Communications and IOE Research Development. The theme music was created by Rob Cochran. Tatiana Sotero Diaz is the series advisor, Amy Leibowitz is the series producer, and Jason Ilagan is the executive producer of the IOE podcast.
Thanks so much for downloading and listening to this IOE podcast.